Okay, this is Davi Barker in the Manchester airport. I'm sitting here with Bill Bupert, who was a witness with me as I traveled through TSA. And I just traveled through TSA security on my way back to San Francisco. I decided to opt out, as I always do. And I had a very pleasant experience with the TSA officer. What he told me is that he doesn't want to be a TSA officer. He actually wants to be a pilot, and it is as unpleasant for him as it is for me.
I tried to get a supervisor because he was getting...
Because you said don't touch my junk, and he realizes he has to. And so he wants somebody superior to take responsibility, as the Milgram experiment suggests. He begins telling me what he's going to be doing to me, back of the hand, front of the hand, all these things, and he says, I'm going to move up your leg until I meet resistance. And I said, I'm ready to resist now, if that's what you're talking about, which is, I just thought that would be funny. And then he just repeated himself, and I went along, and he said, I'm as uncomfortable with this as you are. And I said, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that the agents here were uncomfortable with what was going on. And so I started, that's my key, because anything human, I try to get at anything human.
Yeah.
And so I said, that's interesting. I've never heard a TSA agent say he was uncomfortable with his job. Like, why is that? Yeah. He essentially said that he was studying to be a pilot, and because of there were no opportunities for him in that department, and so they placed him as a TSA agent until something that he's qualified for. And he said, there's other agents here, and he said they're not part of the security club. That's what he called it. They're not part of the security club. He said, there's a woman here who's just waiting to be a chemist. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So there are TSA agents who don't want to be TSA agents. And he says to me, keep an eye on your property. And he says, it's important that you keep an eye on your property. And there are two gray bins right in front of me, one with my backpack and one with my laptop. Now, as soon as he says that, a woman comes up to me and she says, is this your bag? I need to check it. I'll hold it over here while you're being screened. And so I say, well, it's not possible for me to keep an eye on my property if half of it is over here and half of it is over here out of sight. And they sort of say, well, that's too bad. I mean, they didn't put it in those words, but they said, she's going to wait here until you're done screening. So I finish screening. He tells me I can collect my property, and I go to her. She says, there's some metal in your bag that I have to check. Is that okay? And I said, do I have a choice? And she says, no. I mean, not that blatantly, but she effectively says that she has to do it. And so I say, okay. She goes through and she begins pulling out my merchandise. I'm here on a conference and I sell lapel pins, right? So they're just little metallic pins, and there's a lot of them because I sell merchandise. And she says, this is obviously why there's metal here. So she pulls out all the pins, and she puts them in one bin. She puts the backpack in the second bin, and she says, I'm going to run these again. And so she starts walking back to the front of the line. Now, I start following her because I was told to keep my eyes on my property, right? So then I'm stopped by another agent. He tells me, you cannot go this way. And I say, wait, she just told me to keep an eye on my property. And he's standing between me. He says, no, you have to go over there. Now, from the place he sent me, I couldn't see it. So they took my property away, out of my sight, after telling me to keep my eye on it, right? So she runs it through again. She says, thank you. She says, would you like to pack it or would you like me to? I decide to pack it. I pack up all my things. I put on my shoes. I put on my belt. And standing right there behind me when I turn around are two men in a suit, two men in a shirt and tie. They got around to asking me if I was traveling internationally. And they asked me some other questions that I don't remember because I'm a little shaken. But I said, are you conducting an investigation? Am I under suspicion for some reason? And he says, well, we need to know. Like, he doesn't answer. He just says, well, we need to know. I'm the one asking. He says, I'm the one asking the questions here. And I think that's him right there in the orange shirt. I wonder if he's looking for me. I was about to say, is this a situation where I have a right to an attorney, Oh, that's the other thing. He said I was not cleared for screening immediately after the other agent said that I was cleared for screening. And I said that to him when he told me that I wasn't cleared for screening. Because I said, do I have an obligation to answer your questions? He says to me, if you're traveling internationally, you have an obligation to answer my questions. So I said, do you have any evidence that I'm traveling internationally? And he says, well, if you have a boarding pass, I can see it. And I said, well, I've already been screened. Like, my luggage has been searched and they've confirmed I have nothing dangerous. So I don't believe you have a right to search my bag for my boarding pass, right? Like, that's the point of the TSA agent at the front, right, when he gets my ID and he gets, whatever. So then the other guy, not the guy in the orange shirt, but the guy in the blue shirt, he says to me, well, we think we saw some Bitcoins. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? And so I started asking, what are you talking? What are you talking about? Like, what do you think Bitcoins look like? Right? Because
that's where I came up.
Because Bitcoin are digital. Like, that's like him telling me that he saw my Facebook status in my backpack.
Yeah.
You know?
He saw a unicorn on the hill.
Yeah, he saw. So he starts saying, I think I saw some Bitcoin in your backpack. And I'm like, what do you think Bitcoin looks like? And he starts going, oh, well, you know, like tokens or medallions or something. And I said, do you have a superior officer I can talk to? Because I don't think you know what you're talking about. And then the other guy, the orange shirt, says to me, we are the managers here. If you don't want to work with us, I can call over law enforcement. So this guy keeps going on about he thinks he saw tokens in my bag. And I say, well, so what? I've been screened. There's nothing dangerous. Like, you're not. And so he starts saying, well, if you're traveling internationally, we have an interest in knowing how much cash you're traveling with.
Because you can't travel outside the country with more than $10,000.
That's what he told me. I said, well, how much cash are you under the impression that I'm carrying? And he says, well, we saw Bitcoin. And and so I said, well, how much do you think that Bitcoin is worth? And he says, well, we understand it's very volatile. Right? So he saw something. Now, the interesting thing is there was nothing in my bag. There were no coins in my bag. There were no tokens in my bag. There's nothing with a Bitcoin logo on my bag. Like, this is what he saw. What he saw was the sweatshirt I am wearing, which has Bitcoin's screen printed on it. This is a sweatshirt.
What the Bitcoin symbol is.
Yes, that is he's been briefed. TSA has been briefed on what Bitcoin is, and they have decided that it is something they can use to screen anybody to see if they have $10,000 on their person. So I say to him, I'm not in possession of any tokens, which is true, although I shouldn't have even given him that. But I was shaking by this point, like I was afraid by this point.
As you should be.
Right. So then I said something to you. Bill, do you remember what I said to you? Because I leaned over and I said something to you. Oh, I said, he thinks he saw Bitcoin in my backpack.
And that's when I explained to him that Bitcoin is a virtual currency that has no physical representation.
Right. So I guess they're looking for Casasius coins, which is really interesting because, I mean, if they're going to start screening people for Casasius coins, that is a very small piece of metal, and they would essentially have to inspect every piece. It wouldn't even matter. They would have to inspect every single object because anything can have Bitcoin on it. So at that point, Bill and his wife told the officer, or implied, it doesn't even sound like you told them. You said not that I'm aware of.
And I also said that you are not traveling internationally.
Okay.
I hope I didn't.
Well, that's fine. I was ready for it to be over.
Because when it comes to statements of fact, which is what that is, there's nothing speculative about that clearly by your ticket. So I thought that I could say that.
Yeah.
So.
I was ready for it to be over, but I didn't know how to end it at that point. I did not know how to get out of that situation. And as soon as they were told that I was not traveling internationally, they just turned around and left. He used the word obligation somewhere.
That was interesting. I heard him say that. No, I'm obliged to ask you.
Yeah.
I'm obliged. That's an interesting, because you got to watch the phraseology.
Yeah, I do. Because I was asking, am I obligated to answer these questions? And he answered, I'm obligated to ask you these questions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not an answer, dude.
Well, look, they lie for a living. It really is chilling what's happening in America.
Yeah. I think that's about, he's looking at me. That guy's name is Tinker. He's the guy that patted you down. I remember because I thought the name was so funny. He's standing there and he looks over at me occasionally. I wish I got their names.
Yeah.
The guy who patted me down had a Russian sounding name. It began with a Y.
They hate it when you question them.
Yeah.
The whole process they hate it, and they're suspicious automatically because you're an American questioning them.
Right.
I'm glad I went through with you though.
Yeah, I'm so glad I ran into you because I was about ready to panic. This is them being afraid of Bitcoin. This is how they've decided to deal with it.
I think so. And clearly they don't understand it.